Oh, crud, that's how that mix came out? This is probably what needed to happen from the get-go. So anyway, let's do that. Let's make some rock and roll.
Behind the scenes, with Royish good looks, studio diary.
Hello, and welcome back to another Studio Diary update. Today is April 29th, the 20th Studio Diary entry here. I've got a couple more tweaks to make on the mix. Nothing really major. I'm actually really enjoying how it's sounding. You know, today's Saturday, the 29th, and I'm hoping to put this out maybe even Friday next week, which would be May the 5th. I think. I was thinking maybe it would be fun to shoot for May the 4th, but people always say, hey, you should release something on May the 4th. Are you going to do something special for May the 4th? Over the last several years of doing this, I've had to tell myself that May the 4th, while it is a special day for every Star Wars fan, that it is just one day of the year to celebrate Star Wars when really, you know, I celebrate Star Wars every day, right? And this past month or two has been crazy Star Wars time with Bad Batch and Mandalorian. So I try not to shoot for like, I've got to have something crazy special for May the 4th. Like that's for Disney to figure out and Lucasfilm to figure out the special stuff they have to do. For me, my process, I got to take into account my own sanity. So it'd be nice to always have something special on May the 4th, but I think I'm going to shoot for the Friday, May the 5th. If not Friday, then the Saturday, May 6th. Long story short, we've got a little less than a week to wrap this up, but it's plenty of time to finish this proofreading. And I'm already really enjoying how it sounds. The tweaks that I have for today, we've got one edit in verse 1 to take care of, some weird Esses in the pre-choruses that are bugging me, in that last chorus, tucking in that last ad-lib line just a little bit more, solo up a touch, and checking some EQs for the rhythms and the guitars, and this one plugin virtual tape machine that I can already see in the Pro Tools session we don't even need to check. So a really easy laundry list of things to hit today, and it should be that way since we're revising mix 2 into mix 3. So we've already had a lot of time to fix, you know, the small stuff. There may still be some things that pop out, but it's shaping up, you know, it's the last little bit of polish that we're putting on it to make sure, okay, is it perfect? Is it just the way I want? And we'll try not to go off the deep end. You know, the tricky thing about mix revisions is every time you listen to the mix, you know, it's a Pandora's box of like, well, you might find something that you don't like now. It's like, hey, how does my hair look today? If you don't look in the mirror, your hair looks great. But as soon as you look in the mirror, you're like, oh no, I got my hair's here in the back or sticking up, or all my grays are showing through, whatever it is. You know, as soon as you start evaluating it, you open the possibility up to find something you don't like. Trying to walk that line of making improvements, but not going insane. Before we jump into the mix though, I think it'd be fun to show off some of the work I've been doing for the thumbnail and the album artwork. It's nothing special, but it'd be fun to just document it on camera here a little bit at least. So here's what I got for the thumbnail. We got our Mandalorians. The song is The Mandalorian, so I figure we could have a few. I was gonna do like, find as many Mandalorians as I can and put them in there, and I did have some rough mock-ups where that was the case, but it was too chaotic. So of course we got Bo, Din, and Paz, the Mandalorians. I mean, those are like the main people this season. Maybe the Armorer would have been cool to be in there. A little tough that they're all kind of like blue and silver, and I've used the moon from Mandalore. I think that's like maybe the Concordia moon in the background there as sort of the, you know, pop of the backdrop, and I think this is the official Mandalorian logo here. For the album art, basically the thumbnail, I try to have them work in tandem with each other. So I'll take what I've made for the thumbnail, bring it into the album art, pixelate it a little bit just for fun, blur out that background, and I've recreated the Mandalorian logo here from the Star Jedi font and just kind of like photoshopped it a little bit. You can see the M and the D and the R, you know, that's kind of the dead giveaway of it being a little bit different there. So that's what I was doing yesterday, is kind of tying this together and trying to make this look as epic as possible. That's always such a huge part of the puzzle of like, hey, are you gonna click on this video and watch it? So the thumbnail's gotta look great. It's gotta pop out, and especially at like low resolution. So I do a lot of like zooming out. It still looks pretty cool to me at that smaller ratio there. Good contrast maybe as well between the orange and the, you know, kind of neutral blues there. And then the album art is just, you know, the basic same idea, a little less vibrant. Maybe we can make the album art a little bit more vibrant in that background. So we'll play around with that maybe a little bit more, but hopefully that's a fun little deep dive there. I know I mentioned Photoshop. I don't actually use Photoshop. I use an app called Pixelmator. It's basically Photoshop. Super easy to use. I've never thought of myself as a graphic designer, but it's something I've kind of learned to, you know, hack over the years, and I've tried to get better at it. But man, it's a whole other art and science to get good at when I just want to make rock and roll, right? So anyway, let's do that. Let's make some rock and roll. Let's jump into the mix here.
Behind the scenes.
All right, verse 1, this is the way, mouth click at the end. This is a super easy one to bang out. This is the way, some sort of a clicky click sound I heard here.
You took the creed and believe this is the way.
This was something I heard on headphones too. Let's turn off the effects.
You took the creed and believe this is the way.
Way! It's barely noticeable, but just this ending here, just a little annoying. You can tweak that, fade it out.
You took the creed and believe this is the way.
What's next? That was an easy one. First man up, second man, no, first man down, second man up.
What makes the man DeLorean? What makes the man DeLorean?
This one I guess I wanted down, and this one I wanted up.
What makes the man DeLorean? What makes the man?
Okay, and then low vocal. You know, these two vocals, they just don't match here.
What makes the man DeLorean?
Man! That scoops in, and the bottom one does not.
What makes the man DeLorean?
Goodness, this part has been trouble. All right, let's see, maybe if we duplicate this track. No, what do we even want to do here? Do we want this to do that man? Bring up like Auto-Tune Pro, go to graph mode.
Man,
I don't know if we want to do like note, you know, bring this up.
man.
Right? That's not necessarily, maybe we want it to be like kind of a line, scoop in.
Man.
And try this. We can make a little heavier of a note here.
Man. What makes the man DeLorean?
Okay, it sounds like we need that to be a little bit longer. So if we take all these, let's undo that. Let's send these down, back them up, and then let's put the whole thing in here. Let's do track pitch.
What makes the man DeLorean? What makes the man DeLorean?
Okay, and then let's render it.
What makes the man DeLorean?
And then maybe we do the same thing on these other ones here. Track the pitch in.
What makes the man DeLorean? What makes the man DeLorean?
Nice. Seems to be making that a little tighter.
What makes the man DeLorean? What makes the man DeLorean?
Okay. So this is probably what needed to happen from the get-go. We had a main vocal and a couple of harmonies, and then, you know, a couple days later, we added this ad-lib vocal on top, another harmony, but we didn't like edit and tune everything together or comp everything together. So when I did my initial vocal edit, all of the main vocals and their harmonies worked, but then when we dumped in this extra harmony, it didn't work quite as well, and we didn't realize that. We can sort of retroactively go back and nudge things into place, whether that was timing or tuning. We've obviously done a ton of editing here. That little scoop into man, the Mandalorian, didn't match on the low octave. What makes the man? What makes the man? So we needed to change that. I could have resung it, but it's just like a half step sliding into it. So now I think it sounds a little bit better.
What makes the man DeLorean?
It's such a small thing, the Mandalorian. But to have them both match, I'm gonna hear that every time. Okay, great. Now they are in sync with each other, and it's not as distracting as it once was. Okay, and maybe we don't even need to turn that vocal down anymore. That might have been why I was like, oh, let's turn the ad-lib down because they're rubbing against each other too much. Okay, that's cool. We can check all those off. All right, so a couple of tricky ones. The pre-C chorus S's. Pre-chorus S's have been messing with me. It's more. See if we can just find a different take for it's. Just the S though.
It's more than best
They all sounded so similar.
It's more than best Scar Steel.
Steel. Best Scar Steel. Yeah, I just want a smoother S, not this best, you know, really annoying.
Best Scar Steel.
Okay, so that's a little bit better. And then pre-C2.
If you would only understand. It's
Same thing here.
understand.
It's a little harsh. Understand.
Understand. It's more than best Scar Steel.
Steel.
Understand. It's more than best Scar Steel. Best Scar Steel.
Yeah, I guess I don't know why we wouldn't just want the same
You
enunciation.
would only understand. It's more than best Scar Steel.
And then last pre-chorus.
If you would only understand, it's more than best Scar Steel. It's more than best Scar Steel.
A little smoother. And then this one just seems like it's too loud. It's more.
It's more than best Scar Steel.
Okay, super annoying. S's and sibilants can be really annoying, especially when you get to this like final mix thing and you're like, what is distracting me? And a lot of times it is the distracting me, like little enunciations like that, and especially in the S's, because they tend to like tear your head off if you're tuned into them, I guess. But I do recall listening on earbuds and not noticing this one bit, but absolutely noticing them on my Sony MDR 7506s. They're a really bright headphone, so they're really great for picking that stuff up, but they also kind of accentuate it. And even my studio monitors here are kind of bright. So we did some work there to clean them up. It's probably not as big of an issue as I'm making it out to be here, but leave no stone unturned. We worked on that a little bit, and solo up a touch. So solo, it's pretty good, but I think the guitars are still like not drowning it out. It just needs a tad more volume, maybe like half a dB. Go with that, and then check VTM, so that's already done. So that was, in case you're curious what that last note was, check VTM. I have this rear bus, and, oh no, not the rear bus, parallel VTM. So on that track, I use, well, I guess I can just show it here. I use the Virtual Tape Machine by Stephen Slate. So it's supposed to emulate the characteristics of a tape machine. One day I just decided to take this Virtual Tape Machine off of my mix bus and route it in parallel. The way I have this set up right now is that there's kind of an alternate mix that goes into the tape machine, and then the main mix goes into the mix bus, but also this parallel mix goes into the mix bus. But as soon as I did that, as soon as I took this plugin off of my main mix bus and blended it in parallel, and I think I've even put it down a couple dB here. Yeah, down 14 dB. So it really like more subtly blended in this tape saturation sound and immediately opened the mix up to where it was like, you probably don't need this tape effect as much as you think you do. So that was a huge revelation that I've probably been doing for the last like, I don't know, 5 or 6 songs. I don't remember when I started doing that, but it's funny, this like master mix bus, you can see here, you know, I've got Soothe, Clipper, you know, this master mix bus, you can see I've got a couple of things going on here. And the less you can do on that bus, the less you're going to goof up the entire mix. So this tape machine was one of those things kind of overdoing it. And anyway, the note was to turn it on or off, because you can see if I turn it off, you can see I've got a decapitator and I've got VTM. And they both kind of give me a similar effect. But if I'm recording, I can't have this VTM on because there's a ton of delay, 1700 samples of delay, whereas decapitator, it's only 62 samples of delay. So there's a couple times I've mixed down the song with that effect on or off. And I wanted to double check that I am in fact using VTM, which I am. So we're good to go there. No worries. And now we can hit the last couple mix notes here. Solo up a touch, that's done. Rhythm guitar is a little woofy at 400 hertz. Vocals cloudy, nasal at 1 kilohertz, Nova, question mark. So this was a note from headphones as well, that I think I tend to mix my music a little bit more mid-range heavy and a little shy in the highs and lows because my speakers in the studio kind of like goose up 60 hertz and 16 kilohertz, you know? So I tend to like counterbalance that for better or worse. And it's something I have to check myself on. So I think the guitars might be a little woofy. Let's go to like the second chorus. That sound there like brings the guitars way out. Bring that down. Let's just go to 0.2. Oh, I didn't do any of that on screen. Sorry. Haha. Okay. I don't know if this is a subliminal effect because I know what I changed, but I ducked a little bit of high mids, or not high mids, but a little bit of mid-range on the vocals that was kind of making me mad. Ducked 0.2 dB of 450 and half a dB at 1600 on the guitars. So not a lot of crazy changes, but it seems to fit everything together a little bit better there. Just the vocals that are cloudy? Guitars are a little cloudy there. All right, We're getting to the danger zone where we're changing a couple of things and it might impact the overall everything, the feeling of everything, right? Even though it's just a couple of dB here or there, you know, it can add up to dramatic changes overall. So I don't want to go too down the deep end. Even here, we've been going for 40 minutes already. So it's probably more than enough work for now. So let's check. I guess that's everything. Okay, so let's mix it down and maybe we'll do a little comparison with some of my last songs. I can show you a little bit of double checking.
Studio Diary!
So now what I'm gonna do is a little experiment, you could call it kind of research and development, of trying to compare this current mix of our new song with previous releases that I've done. A number of reasons I wanna do this: to make sure that it sort of fits in with the last songs that I've done. When you play them back to back, they feel sort of the same. They can feel different, but hopefully not too dramatically different. I use a lot of the same source material and same settings, so they generally feel the same. But of course, there's little tweaks here and there. So to kind of compare and contrast is an important part of the process, as well as making sure that they're like relatively the same loudness. So we can measure the RMS level of our song is about -15. It's like poetry, -15. Never Tell Me the Odds, a little quieter on that one, and so on. So I can see like how loud were my last couple songs, and we can compare and contrast that and see if we're getting the same amount of like gooiness of the master and like squeezing. If we go way back here, let's see Rogue Squadron. I think Rogue Squadron is probably going to be real loud. -12. Yeah, so I was mastering a lot louder back then. Feel the Force, -15. That's kind of been my sweet spot, I feel, between -15 and -14 or so. Ooh, Bad Batch, -13. That's another really loud one. Interesting. So this is like a technical side of things, like measuring loudness, not really fun creative part of it, but something to consider when, you know, I am the mastering engineer. I'm the last person the mix touches before it goes to iTunes. There's nobody else looking at that measurement except for me and setting that's going to get you that loudness. So that's something I take into consideration. And not only that, but now we can play these songs kind of back to back and see how they actually feel. You know, we can jump to a section of our song.
The Mandalorian. What makes the Mandalorian? What rhymes? It's like poetry.
Listen to a new song.
What makes the man deep in the minds you read? Growing stronger every year. In your heart, you're a Mandalorian. Never quit, and I'll never tire. 'Cause I'm the sun.
Huh.
You're one of the
Definitely hearing that mid-range kind of woof.
will you ever have? It's always been DeLorean. I am calling the shots, so do what you're told and never tell me the odds. Everything is
A little bright
control situation
on this one.
normal. Everything is
Man, see, that's the funny thing about doing this experiment is then you realize, oh wait, what did I do on the mastering of this? And that's part of it, is like every song can sound a little differently. I wanted this one to be really poppy and upbeat,
never tell me
super bright.
the odds, 'cause I don't wanna know if I could do it or not. I'm gonna fulfill my
A little cloudier.
destiny.
So, oh, sorry, I wasn't showing the screen again. So this is giving me some things to think about now of how we're shaping up based on those last couple songs. This mid-range here,
What makes the Mandalorian? What makes the man?
kind of muted, and then maybe the upper mids.
What makes the Mandalorian? What makes the man?
And we could do a little high shelf.
What makes the man? What makes the Mandalorian? What makes the man?
Maybe something like that.
On rebellion, rebellion.
Rebellion's a little louder, it sounds like.
Mandalorian, what makes the man? In my armor, stripped right off of me. I am ready to leave that land with these twin ion engines. So goodbye, old friend. Goodbye. Beneath all the greed and lies, this is how the man. He is more
Here, it's interesting, we were talking about VTM earlier. I can hear the VTM all over this one.
than man. He is
That kick.
more machine now
Too much.
than man. He is more machine now. I fall asleep with you, and I wake up alone. Run, we are the best.
Ton of Bad Batch. Ha!
What's gonna fall to the dark side? And the desert planet with two suns. He's
It's such an eye-opening experience to then compare your mix against other mixes, especially your own, because you can see how you're balancing things. But it seems like we still have some cloudy mid-range and a little lack of high-end. So we can go back into our main mix and adjust for that. And I have to be totally honest, doing that experiment a little bit is nerve-wracking and a little bit embarrassing, because then you realize like, oh crud, like that's how that mix came out in comparison to this other mix. So that's why you got to do that experiment and hopefully be able to spell check before you release it out into the real world. That helps you get a bird's eye view without the bias of like how the master is shaping up. Overall, the song is good, but that final sheen of the EQ, and the loudness, how's that shaping up? So I would love to be able to make this a little bit clearer. So let's go to the, pre-chorus 2 and chorus 2 again. Try to get a little less of that woofy sound going on. This is a guitar thing. Man, so the old mix sounds a little bit more full. But again, the speakers here are already compensating for that. So the speakers here are boomy and bright, and they lack mid-range. So I add mid-range to make it sound balanced. It should sound boomy and bright naturally to me. That's the trick. You have to understand how your speakers actually represent the sound to work with them, and not to fill in the opposite of what your speakers are doing, which is the tendency. Okay, it's still kind of dark though. So I think we've gone for long enough that I've made enough revisions that we've improved the song. We've certainly changed the song, and now we need to call it a day. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break to just let my ears sit, and then we'll print it down. We'll move on with our weekend.
Behind the scene.
Man, it's so funny. I just sat here with my eyes closed, listening to the mix with my headphones on, printing down the mix. And it sounds great. It sounds great. Before printing it down, I took a little break, hit the bathroom, I ate a cookie, refreshed my ears for a minute. I actually even sang some Police songs on the guitar. Came back, listened, printed it down, and it's like, boom, it sounds great. It's so funny to throw it into that session with all of my other songs and compare and contrast, because really, like, you like the song or you don't like the song. Obviously, the mix plays a role in that, but in this part of the process, it can get really easy to lose sight of like, the song is there and the arrangement is there and the sonics play an important role, and I want to get those right. But also the fact that like, it's interesting. The fact that I'm doing all of this myself, like, kind of gives all those things a little bit of leeway, I feel like. When we complain about an episode of The Mandalorian or, a movie or whatever, there's so many people working on it. So you expect like, yeah, this should be awesome, the amount of money and man hours that are going into it. I'm just one dude, and it's taken 20 days to get to this point. I've put a lot of effort into it, and it does sound good. I am really happy with it. Of course, you're always going to want it to sound better, or, find something to improve if you're in this process like we are now. To always come back down to earth and like, refresh your perspective, listen to it. Wow, it sounds pretty good. In no like nitpicky things. Like, I guess the Esses are still kind of bothering me, but overall, pretty satisfied with it. That last chorus, I'm almost content with it. I think the tuning definitely helped today. That's where I'm going to leave it. So we've got mix 3. I'm going to upload that to Dropbox, and I watched the video this morning on my laptop, and the video's still looking good. So I'll drop this in Final Cut, review it there, and we'll be a little bit closer to calling it a day on this. On average, I would say most of my songs get to like mix 3 and they're pretty much done. I inevitably will probably do a mix 4 or 5 when I find out like, oh, there was a little click or a pop here or a weird edit or whatever. But this is probably the brunt of the major changes. Taking a listen to some other reference material and rebalancing EQ based on that is kind of a dramatic change, but I normally don't do many dramatic changes past mix 3. So there you have it. I mean, hopefully the mix revision process has been interesting for you to watch. Hopefully the monologues have been interesting. I may or may not have already mentioned it, but other things left to do would be upload the song to Spotify and iTunes, which isn't that interesting. It's just kind of a web form to fill out, and uploading the video to YouTube, which, same thing. It's like, just submit the thing, then actually let the release day happen and watch, the reactions come in on Instagram and, YouTube and whatnot. I'm not sure what else we'll have to film here other than maybe that's what we'll do. The day that the song comes out, I can do another recap of like stuff I did that day for the release and comments that rolled through and react to the reaction. So maybe that sounds good. And if that's the case, that's what you can look forward to on the next episode of the Studio Diary here. If not, whatever the next episode happens to be, I'll see you then.
Behind